book of Ecclesiastes, and I want to give you a recap before we start, but I also want to take a minute to just let you know that I'm very excited about this morning's message. I often take quite a bit of time to really figure out what God has to say to you guys, and this week I did it on my lawnmower multiple times. I just said, God, what do you want to say? What do you want to say? Because Ecclesiastes had so many different things, and I do believe that this is a direct word of God from you. I think every word from God is for you, but I believe that this specific word is in season. Joe and I pick out what we are doing in our series, sometimes months in advance. We change it according to what God is doing, but we kind of stick with the plan, and it is not beyond me that this week these two chapters fell when they did, because there's a lot of stuff going on at CPC in a lot of people's lives. And so I truly believe if that's you, that God has something specifically for you this morning. And so Ecclesiastes chapter 1 and 2, Pastor Joe set it up perfectly last week and talked to us about King Solomon. So what do we know? King Solomon wrote this book, Ecclesiastes. He wrote Proverbs, which is a wisdom book, and he wrote Song of Solomon, which is a love book. And King Solomon had everything that he ever could have wanted. He had money, power, women, wisdom, and he figured out that that didn't make him happy. That absolutely at the end of life, he could chase all of those things, but the only things that were worth it were the things that built God's kingdom, that were for the things of God. And so throughout the process of this book, he says the word meaningless 38 times. And in some of them, he does mean without meaning. There are chasing after the wind, like Pastor Joe talked about last week, chasing after things that just really have no purpose, really are meaningless. But if we read through this, we would get to the end of it and go, wow, our life has absolutely no meaning. This book was incredibly depressing, and I don't know that I ever want to read that again. So what does the word meaningless truly mean? In Hebrew, it's the word havel. It means a mist, a vapor, or a breath. It means that we're here today and we're gone tomorrow, that it's quick, it's difficult to grasp. And so if we lean into this book and what that really means, it means if it's quick, if it's fast, we better pay attention. We better lean into the moments that we have. And so instead of leaning in this week to the meaningless things around us, what I'd love for chapter 3 and 4 to do would be to remind us of what does have meaning in our lives. To remind us of what we do hold, which is life itself. Because all of the life that we are living can be lived through the lens of what God has for us, and that is very meaningful. You have a purpose, each and every one of you. Out of all of the history of time, out of all of the time periods, all of the nations that we have everywhere, God ordained you to be here in this specific moment in time. Do you know that? Do you know that God surrounded you with the people that you're surrounded? He gave you the places of influence that you have. He made you, I'll borrow words from the book of Esther, for such a time as this. And if we really step back and look at the big picture of life, that is kind of sobering. If God chose you, your life, to exist in this moment, he must have a plan for you. Out of all of humanity, he chose now. So what does it look like for us to grasp that responsibility? Chapter 3 begins with the seasons of life, the purpose of life, and all of those different things. I'm going to read this. You've probably heard it before, but just listen in. Ecclesiastes 3, 1 through 8. There is a time for everything, and a season for every activity under the heavens. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to uproot. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to tear down and a time to build, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to scatter stones and a time to gather them, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to search and a time to give up, a time to keep and a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to mend, a time to be silent and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time for war and a time for peace. I don't know about you, if we don't have a lot of time, that's a lot of time. Because I think if we look at our lives and the seasons and we listen to those things, we probably have all experienced most of them. We often hear this read at funerals. I think because of how it begins, there's a time to be born and a time to die, kind of the bookends of life. But I also think it's because most of the time, if we aren't careful, it can take until the end of our days for us to really understand and acknowledge what these seasons mean in our lives. We can get to the end of our lives and look back and in hindsight realize what God was doing. But I truly believe today that he wants to wake us up to what he's doing right now. Not hindsight. In our finite minds, we can see these seasons as seasons like the ones we live in Ohio: winter, spring, summer, fall. Those are inevitable, except for right now. Why is it 40 degrees outside? With time, we know eventually winter will come. With time, we know eventually spring will come. We're just accustomed to time moving these things along. And we can say that for spiritual seasons. Oh, I'm just in a season of suffering. I'm just in a season of depression. I'm just in a season of XYZ, as if with time, those things will just pass. But that's not what kind of seasons these are. We have what we would call practical seasons of our lives, right? Your kids are little and then they're older and then they get married and then they have kids. We have practical seasons of our lives, but I am 100% confident that those practical seasons are woven into the spiritual seasons that God has for you and I if we will allow him to utilize them. We could go in and out of these seasons of life and not realize what God is really trying to do in our hearts. These kinds of seasons that we talk about, they're not seasons that you and I can coerce. We can't make them happen. We can't force ourselves into them, nor can we force ourselves out of them. There's no amount of willing that we can do to move some of these spiritual seasons along. These seasons of our lives are strongly dependent on what God is doing in our hearts, what we're allowing him to do in our hearts and lives. So that job that you hate right now, God is doing something in you. What is it? That teen that you wrestle with right now, God is doing something. What is it? That season of loneliness or feeling of emptiness, God is working in you. What is it? We can't take the practical season, oh, my kids are going through this, or my parents are going through this, or I'm going, these practical life things, and separate them from spiritual seasons. We can't do that. If all of our purpose, all of our life is what God is doing in us, every single season of life that's good or difficult, we have to step back and say, okay, God, what are you asking me to do? What are you doing in my heart and in my mind? A pastor said it this way: to God, we are seeds to be planted in order to bear fruit. What if we looked at the seasons of our lives, both practical and spiritual, and we asked ourselves some questions this morning? Are we in a season of being planted where God is asking us to grow deeper roots on how we see him and what he's doing in our lives? Are we in a season where we've grown so much and maybe it's gotten a little out of hand? Our growth has gone our own way, and he's saying, hey, those branches are not bearing fruit. I never asked you to grow in that way. I'm going to prune them back so that you can grow in a different way. Or maybe you're in a season of your life where you feel like you've been buried and maybe you've been hanging out in the cold ground for a bit too long and you're wondering if your season has died. And he's saying, oh, no, I'm bringing new life. It's coming. Farmers will tell you, Mr. Maddox will tell you, there is a whole lot more to farming than just choosing a crop and plopping it in the ground. It's an entire life work. It's methodical. It's what are we going to plant where and when and how do we need to work the soil and all of these different things that I could pretend like I know what I'm talking about, but I don't. Because there's a whole system and a process of how to do this thing called cultivating a harvest. The same is true with your life. God is incredibly methodical about what he's planting in you right now. He has no interest in just tossing seeds out and hoping that it grows right. He knows you and he loves you and he has good things for you. Man, this is a word specifically for some people in this house. I don't know what it is, but God is speaking directly to you, so open your ears. Have you ever had one of those seasons in your life where things happen over and over and over again? Maybe your car breaks and then your fridge breaks and you're worried about financial struggles constantly. That's because God is trying to work your response and he's giving you lots of options to respond differently, which is in trusting him. Maybe you keep hitting this same season of depression over and over and over again and wondering why it will never end. God is allowing you moments to dig deep roots and find your true peace in him, your joy in him. He gives us these opportunities to cultivate new things in life in different seasons. If we allow him to use what we view as practical life seasons to produce spiritual life fruit, life's meaning and purpose finally becomes kingdom-minded, and it's not meaningless at all. Solomon turns his heart and he says something really interesting in chapter 3, verse 12. He says, I know there is nothing better for people than to be happy and to do good while they live, that each of them may eat and drink and find satisfaction in all their toil. This is the gift of God. Now, not to confuse what Pastor Joe said about getting drunk last week. He's not talking about going out and drinking. He's just talking about fellowshipping and enjoying life, that this is the gift of God. Ecclesiastes 3:22, again, he says, so I saw that there's nothing better for a person to do than to enjoy their work, because that's their lot. For who can bring them to see what will happen after them? We only have the here and now. We cannot get stuck in the past, and we cannot get stuck trying to move to the future. We only have what's right now. So we might as well say, okay, God, I'm here to enjoy it and have the joy of the Lord, and I'm going to experience everything you have for me in this season until you move me on. That's an incredibly interesting phrase for a man who has said everything is meaningless to finally come back and say, but I guess if this is what we're here to do, we should enjoy it as a gift. All of a sudden, the ho-hum from chapters 1 and 2 comes into two very simple things. Our life in Christ really does have a purpose as long as it's in Christ, and that we're supposed to enjoy that life. And King Solomon is right. I don't think there's any way, shape, or form God just put us on this world, on this earth, and was like, make it through. Good luck. He wants us to enjoy life. John 10:10, he contrasts the enemy and Jesus in this. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. So if you're not experiencing that, what he's saying is it's not the life I've had for you. Somewhere in your season, if it doesn't feel like life and to the full, the enemy is stealing and destroying a part of what God has for you. The fruit of the Spirit, we know there are many, but one of them is joy. When God's desire is for us to be infused by his Spirit with joy. So that means when we abide in his presence, you're going to hear us talking about this because we really want to cultivate an atmosphere of prayer and praise in this place. And we realize that it's less about raising your hands and getting on your knees and more about desiring to get into his presence. And so when we get into his presence and we allow his Spirit within us, joy is a natural thing that flows out of us. And you may say, Pastor Emily, some of those seasons were really difficult seasons. Some of the things that have happened in my life are not enjoyable at all, and I completely understand that. I would venture to say that 50% of CPC people are going through incredibly difficult times right now. Something happened within the last month that it just feels like people's lives are heavy and hard and difficult. Have you ever seen a flower that grows out of the concrete and you're like, where did that come from? That's life in Christ. That's finding the joy and the beauty in situations that feel difficult, that feel like there's no reason why there should be life there, but all of a sudden, because God is there, life is there. How? How do I do that? James 1:2-4. Count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know the testing of your faith produces perseverance. There it is again. God is trying to produce something in you and me. He's trying to bring forth growth out of us if we will allow him to plant in the right seasons. This is where practical and spiritual purposes meet. Ecclesiastes 3:12, after this list of things, Solomon says this: he has made everything beautiful in its time. Now, what that does not mean is that eventually your season will turn beautiful. If we can just get through it, it'll be beautiful. No, what Solomon listed was, for everything there is a time, and everything is beautiful in its time. God has beauty in each and every season. We just have to cling on to it and never let go. The hard part is, I am not exactly sure that you and I understand how to find this beauty, how to truly enjoy life. There have been moments in life, pretty recently, that the joy that I found was simply taking my shoes off and walking out and saying, God, I thank you for this grass today. Maybe it's sitting on your front porch and drinking an ice cold tea or whatever feels good to you. God, I thank you that I'm alive enough to experience this today. I don't know what finding joy looks like. Those are light things because we're human. But you know what I'm saying. At some point, we have to attempt to find the good that's around us when everything else may not feel good. And I don't know that we're good at enjoying life because I think we have our lives are full. We have a lot going on. We have a lot to worry about. We can worry about the things that are happening in our lives. We can worry about the things that are happening at work. We can worry about our kids. We can worry about our parents. We can worry about all these different things. So how do you go through this tangible, practical life and not worry? There's words of a song that says, I'm in a hurry to get things done. I rush and rush until life's no fun. Some of you know this song already. All I really got to do is live and die. But I'm in a hurry and I don't know why. And when I decided to do this part, I didn't know Pastor Joe was going to be sitting in here, so I'm not going to look at him right now. But he sent me a little recording and he gave me permission that he wanted to be a part of this today.
Also, I can sing it on Sunday as part of the sermon point if you want me to. All I really gotta do is live and die, but I'm in a hurry and don't know why.
I have just secured that he will never send me voice memos again. I love you. My face is 10 shades of red. All right. But in all seriousness, it's true. We rush and rush until life's no fun. The seniors, the people in retirement age, the people who have hindsight will tell you, don't rush life's practical seasons. But if they've spent a lot of life in Christ, they'll tell you don't rush spiritual seasons either. Embrace every minute for what it's worth because it's a vapor, it's a mist. Lean into the difficult of each season. Here's the truth. There is a certain practical grind to life. And if we're honest, most of us would say that the life of life does sometimes feel like a burden. We've got bills to pay. We've got kids to raise, a lawn to be tended to, a body to maintain health, houses to keep, relationships to cultivate. We actually don't just get to live and die. We have things to accomplish here on this earth, and those things are important. Providing for your children, providing for your life, taking care of your health, all of those things are important. Jesus was fully God and fully man, and what did he do before his ministry? He took on the trade of his father, which was a carpenter. He had a job. He understood that he had to provide. The women back in that day, they made all of their food from scratch. Thank God that's no longer a thing. They understood the practicality of life. There is a level of humanity where we understand that this life is going to be filled with work. King Solomon calls it toil in verse 22, and he says, hey, that's your lot. That's what you get. It's work. But I want to unpack that for a minute, because that is true. Work is part of our lives. But I think we always have to realign our minds with God's original intent for his kids. Genesis 1:26 through 30. This is long, so bear with me. Then God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so that they may rule over the fish of the sea and the birds of the sky, over the livestock and all the wild animals, and over the creatures that move along the ground. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. God blessed them and said to them, be fruitful, increase in number. That's a job. Fill the earth and subdue it. A job. Rule over the fish in the sea and the birds of the sky and over every living creature that moves the ground. Then God said, I give you every seed-bearing plant on the face. I don't need to read the rest of it. Basically, he's giving them all of these things. God gave them a garden. He gave them a gift of life. And then he gave them responsibility to steward that life in the garden. And that stewardship, that work, was not work. It was a gift. This is the gift. You get to rule over the fish of the sea. You get to fill the earth and subdue it. That means have kids and raise them. Same thing we're doing now. But for some reason, it looked and it felt different back then. Why? Because sin enters the world, right? Eve eats the fruit. Adam eats the fruit. Everything has changed. And this gift that we were given to steward called life is flipped on its head. And in the next passage, I won't read the whole thing, but I have some things highlighted. What was once a gift, which was filling the earth, there would be pains in childbearing. And what was once that she was made out of the rib of Adam and they were one, it was that he would rule over and that the ground was cursed. And what was once a gift would be painful toil and sweat from their brow. All of a sudden, this gift became work. It became a burden. But that was never God's original intention for his kids. It was a workload that we were never meant to bear. He wanted life to be a gift. And if we truly believe that Jesus came to redeem and restore that which was lost, which I believe all of us do, he came to take the sin for once and for all, and the punishment of sin was laid upon his shoulders. That's the punishment of sin. The punishment of sin was laid upon his shoulders. So if we believe that he redeemed all that was lost, we believe that he can redeem the curse of sin as well, which means no longer does it have to be a burden and work. It can be a gift again. I'm really excited about this. I need some amens or something. God's desire for his kids then is the same now. Your body that you have to take care of, that's a lot of work, it's a gift. The house that you have to maintain and pay for, it's a gift. The family that you need to provide for and that you also have to figure out all the relational woes, they're a gift. The car you drive and your need for a car, your ability to live, it's a gift. We have to move back from the burden of it all and remind ourselves of the original gift, and that was stewardship. It wasn't work. It was stewarding God's creation. and we get the opportunity to do that. We find an interesting answer as we move into Ecclesiastes chapter 4. King Solomon talks about the 3 ways to work. And if we're going to work, we should probably know what the 3 ways to work are, because 2 of them are not enjoyable and 1 of them is. So we should probably figure out the enjoyable way. Ecclesiastes 4, 5 through 6 says, "Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. Better 1 handful with tranquility than 2 handfuls with toil, chasing after the wind." I want to break down these 3 ways for a minute. Fools fold their hands and ruin themselves. The first way to work is to not work at all. It's laziness. And this can actually seem incredibly enjoyable for the time being. There's so much stuff to do. I'm just going to not do it. It's overwhelming. I'm going to sit back and enjoy life right now and not steward what God has given me. But Proverbs tells us that brings us to poverty, hunger, and ruin. So it's not enjoyable. Laziness is not a good thing. And we can be lazy practically. We can get behind on taking care of our house, on taking care of our bodies, on taking care of our kids. You fill in the blank for what it is. We can take a step back and say, I'm not going to steward that area. But we can also get lazy spiritually. God, I understand that I'm in these seasons, and I don't want to work on the things that you've asked me to work on in my own heart and mind. I don't want to face the emotions and the things that I need to take care of. I'd rather be lazy, but that brings us to ruin. The second way, I'm gonna ignore the middle because that's the enjoyable one. We'll get to that last. The second way is then 2 handfuls with toil and chasing after the wind. It's overly busy and overcommitted. What this looks like is life is so full, so it's enjoyable. We've got all of the different activities and we've said yes to everything and all the balls are in the air and it's great. It seems enjoyable until you go home or you get in the car and you want to punch your spouse in the face. Or you haven't had dinner. You either eat it at 3 o'clock or you eat it at 8 p.m. You're not kind to anyone around you because you've said yes too many times, which means you said no to the joy of God. This often looks like the rat race. Sign us up for everything, and we don't count the cost. Life isn't enjoyable now because our hands are too full to hold anything else. And spiritually, what this looks like physically. We've all been in this season before. But spiritually, what this looks like is my hands are too full to spend time with you, God. My hands are too full to enter your presence. And so therefore, because my schedule's too busy and life is too overwhelming, I'm no longer able to apply what you have for this season because I can't hear you. La, 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 la. My hands are too full. The third one is better 1 handful with tranquility. What's that look like? It looks like balance. Well, that's impossible. No, it's not. No, it's not. It says it's better 1 handful with tranquility, which means you have to choose 1 handful. Joe and I are not great at this, but let me tell you, we work incredibly intentionally about how to choose 1 handful in a very, very busy season. It means you're stewarding the things that God has for you. I'm stewarding my relationship with my spouse. I'm stewarding my relationship with my kids. I'm stewarding the job that God has given me that provides. I'm stewarding my time with God. I put the big things in the bucket first. And then, before I add anything else, I choose peace. I choose time with God. I choose joy in life. And if adding other things to my life adds to that, great, steward it. But if it doesn't, then we have taught ourselves a society lesson that a busy life or a lazy life is actually what God has for us, and it is ruining us. I had a life coach about a couple years ago maybe, who I was so busy with a million different things, and she had me get a paper calendar, and I was supposed to put everything that I wanted to do. I was making these brain dumps because my brain just never stops. So I was making a list of all the things that were on my mind, and she said, great, now put them in this week, but don't put one of them in until you've put on there at 5 o'clock or whatever, dinner. Everybody needs dinner. Don't put anything at 8 o'clock because you're taking your daughter to school that time. You can't do anything there. I was giving myself this false sense of reality that I can squeeze all these things in a day and hopefully somehow it'll be filled with joy. And so after a week, I came back to her in our next session and I said, I have to tell you, I don't like this. I'm way less productive than I used to be. And she said, yep, you get to choose. You can either be overly productive or you can be filled with peace. It's your choice. It's your choice. One handful with peace, or are you going to fill both hands? Because he's given you. The joy of the Lord is your strength. I've asked Pastor Leah to sing Make Room again. Because spiritually and practically, I think a lot of us need to do that. But I also would like to give you some time. You can respond at the side. If you need prayer, I can be at the front for prayer. I also want to give you just some time to say, God, what season am I in? What are you trying to do in my life? Where have I said too many yeses that I'm overly busy? Where have I been lazy and I need to work? I'm coasting and maybe I should be doing a little bit more. God, where's your peace and joy in my life? Help me find it again in this season. So let's just take a few minutes. I'll close us in a minute.